Without the mouthpiece, the pitch is detuned from common practice playing. Additionally, with all saxophone without mouthpiece techniques, it is impossible to determine a standard and all-encompassing transposition. However, a transposition chart for each saxophone, soprano, alto, tenor, and baritone, is provided below this main video. Like the air pitch technique, the range of the tongue ram technique is limited. This is because the use of the octave key does not affect the pitch. Starting from the lower tessitura, the range begins with B flat 3, or A3 on baritone, and extends chromatically upward to C sharp 5. From here, I skip the normal fingerings for D5 and instead use the C1 to C5 side keys, or to C6 on soprano, to extend the range by a further major third, or a perfect fourth on soprano. This extension is achieved without using the octave key. The full range of the tongue ram technique on alto saxophone would then be Performers, composers, and researchers can draw parallels between the tongue ram and various contemporary techniques. Firstly, there are two techniques from standard saxophone practice that evoke inspiration and imitation: the slap tongue and the common practice tongue ram. With the mouthpiece, the typical popping sound of the slap tongue is reminiscent of the tongue ram technique, despite their very different means of production. The slap tongue, the tongue ram with common practice saxophone playing, and saxophone without mouthpiece tongue ram. The tongue ram technique can also be produced with a mouthpiece and is referred to by the same name. This may cause confusion in determining whether the tongue ram technique is intended with or without a mouthpiece. However, succeeding and preceding musical events should give a clear context. In The Techniques of Saxophone Playing, Marcus Weiss and Giorgio Netti comment on both techniques as if they were the same, due to their similar means of production, despite the two actions having completely different soundings and sonic results. Although the production action is similar, the tongue ram with a mouthpiece yields a significantly weaker sound due to the smaller opening the air is forced into. Furthermore, there are stronger parallels with the contemporary flute techniques sharing the same name. The means of production is also very similar on the flute as on a saxophone without mouthpiece. Daniel Kinsey posits the historical standpoint that the common practice slap tongue served as a catalyst for the tongue ram technique among flutists, subsequently influencing saxophonists to emulate the flute's tongue ram. He explains that the tongue ram for flutists is the mode of playing that flutists use to imitate the slap technique of saxophonists. In their contemporary guide, The Techniques of Flute Playing, Karine Levine and Christina Mitropoulos-Bott elucidate three approaches to employing the tongue ram technique. The second is interesting for my discussion here. According to Levine and Mitropoulos-Bott, in this method, the embouchure hole is completely covered with the lips, and with a strong thrust of air, the tongue is propelled into the embouchure hole where it is stopped. This is the same method of production used by saxophonists. According to Marcus Weiss and Giorgio Netti, the tongue ram is the staccato of alla tromba playing. However, this assessment seems only partially correct. Fundamentally, the tongue ram and trumpet sounds techniques are related because they both exploit the closed-end air column properties of the saxophone tube. The tongue ram is essentially the undeveloped fundamental harmonic of the trumpet sounds technique. However, after examining the sonic material from these two techniques, there are distinguishable discrepancies in the resultant pitches between them. For example, on the alto saxophone, the F4 fingering produces a sounding A3 plus a quarter tone with the tongue ram technique. With trumpet sounds, the same fingering produces a G sharp 3 plus an eighth tone. Let me model that for you. A performer or composer would have to discount the microtonal differences between these two techniques to understand the tongue ram technique as simply the staccato of the trumpet sounds technique. However, this acoustic phenomenon is useful for a saxophonist despite the inherent pitch differences. Saxophonists can leverage this to gain insights into the specific pitch they should target when employing the trumpet sounds technique. Consult the transposition charts for each technique to ensure accuracy. While the tongue ram technique remains effective across all saxophones, it is noteworthy that as the tessitura ascends, the resulting sound tends to diminish in strength. The decrease in diameter and length of the saxophone tube as the register ascends is a contributing factor to the diminishing sound in higher registers. Both Kinsey and Weiss-Netti express a similar viewpoint, suggesting that the tongue ram technique is most effective when applied to the lower registers. Kinsey asserts that the tongue ram technique exhibits greater effectiveness on larger saxophones as opposed to smaller ones. While this evaluation holds true in general, it should not dissuade composers from incorporating the tongue ram technique with alto or soprano saxophones.